Hi everyone. So today we are doing 4 new techniques that we're going to have a look at. Not necessarily new. You might remember some of these from last year's lesson or from our last lesson. And then we're going to do a really fun project where we take everything from lesson 3, the last one, and also today to paint a really nice vintage floral picture. So let's get started. So first of all, you have your paints and just give them a spray. And then I have a mixing palette here that I'm going to use, and I have 2 jugs with water. Use any brush. Don't get hung up with details about which brush to use. Use the brush that feels right for you. So I'm going to use a number 8 round brush. This is the brush I probably use most for everything. And just pick a color. So the first thing we're doing is I just want you to have a look when we are doing wet on dry, just how harsh the edges can be. So we're doing wet on dry technique, and you can have any color. And all that we're doing is we're mixing paint, a really wet mixture. And I just want you to paint that in any form or shape on here. So let's just paint that. I'll mix in another color just for the fun of it. And we are just doing a wet on dry mixture. So wherever my brush sort of stops, that's where my edge will be. So I can take my brush to wherever I want it to have a harsh edge. Okay. So that's the first technique. The second one that we're doing is dry brush. Now I love using dry brush. It really adds texture to anything you're doing, especially if you're painting like the ocean and if you want some white to come through. Remember, with watercolor, we don't paint white, we leave white. So let's go in for a color, and I'm going to use a blue color, just a really dark indigo blue. And for dry brush, so my paint is pretty wet. Okay, here's my paint. I hope you can't hear my dogs in the back. They are having a field day at the moment. Okay, so there's lots of paint on my brush. Okay, so I'm painting that in, putting that paint down, but then I don't pick up more paint. I just use whatever is on my brush and let that run out. So you can turn your brush a little bit, but just sort of let whatever is there run out. You can go and add a bit more if you want. For example, if you're painting the ocean, put down some more paint, dry your brush on your cloth, and then go back and soften it a little bit and just use that dry brush technique to your advantage to create beautiful texture, either in water or wherever, clouds, whatever you're painting. Okay, so do you see how it naturally keeps that white? Okay. Now, same as before, if we do want hard edges, then like with this technique, but then you just do it a bit planned. So this is where you can draw out a picture for yourself and sort of have a planned idea of what you want and where. So let's do, for example, a cloud. I'm painting a cloud over here, and I do want it to have some harsh edges. So I'll go in and put my edges, and then I'll just take water and I bring that color out. Okay, And that gives me a nice, harsh, hard edge wherever I want it. Okay, so it's just about having that control over your paint and over your brush. Similar to that, it's the same technique. We're using lots of wet paint on dry, but just focusing on those edges. And if we do our project later, you will see how we are going to use this. Okay, and then lastly, the soft edges. So I'm doing the exact same thing that I've done now. I'm going to put down a cloud, but I want to give it soft edges. So I'm putting down my cloud over here. Same thing as what I've done there. Put down my shape that I want. Paint the inside just like I've done before. Okay, but now I want a soft edge. So what do? Just with some water, we can go and we can work that edge. Before it dries, you want to do this before it dries, otherwise it will make a line. So you really want to be quick with this and use water, and then we can sort of blend it out as we want it using a bit of dry brush. Okay. You can lift up some as before and just give it a softer edge. There we go. Okay, so next we're moving on to our project. Okay, now for our project, I want to challenge you a little bit. Okay. If you are brave, don't use a ruler, but if you want to, that's okay. So more or less in the middle of your page, I want you to draw a rectangle. You don't have to draw the bottom part because we're going to put some steps there. Now go in and do another rectangle a bit smaller. Okay, let's do a step, just going past on either side, and another step, and we can do one more. Okay, let's do a bottom, and now we're going to do two plant pots. So it's like that. They don't have to be exactly the same. Now let's put a small square over here, which will be like a house number. And then on the left side, we are going to do a bougainvillea coming up. So do like just two branches coming up like that. Okay. Okay, so mix a pink color, and we are going, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. So the pink we'll need here for the top, so you want quite a bit of pink. So I'm just mixing my color over here so that you can see it. Okay. So we wanted about 50-50, 50% paint, 50% water, but just mix. We do want it to be nice and vibrant. So when you start painting, if it's too light, just make it darker. Okay. So there's my paint. And then I just need to fetch salt quickly. Before we start, get some table salt, plain table salt. Okay, let's start. So first we're going to take this pink and we are going to paint it all over here. We do sort of want a hard edge on this one, and I'm painting it all the way sort of to the top, but we also want some white space in between. Okay, so let's start. I'm starting here, and I am just painting and sort of painting blotches, if that makes sense. So we want a hard edge, so I am painting wet on dry. We do want this to be quite wet because that gives the best effect when you add salt. Okay, I'm adding more water to it because it's starting to feel like it's drying up. And so, okay, if you do this little, okay, let's get some more. Make sure you have enough because you don't want this to dry before you put your salt. Okay, so I might just give it one spray because it looks like it's dried up here. So I'm just going to give it a spray and then I'll put some salt. Now, almost like you're doing a roast. So you are just sort of doing this kind of salt everywhere, evenly spread out. And now you can go and you can add some darker bits into it as well. So just while that salt's there, just make sort of use of this and add some darker bits. And then we are also going to add our green that we want into our bougainvillea. So let's mix a green color. I'll show you what I've got now. Okay, so I've got like this dark olive green color. Okay, and I am painting this underneath my bougainvillea. Same style, this blotchy style over here. Just putting some, not everywhere, just here and there, some green coming out. Okay, some of it's going to blend and bleed into your pink. That's okay. We can put some green into it on this side over here, some here at the top. You can drop in some here if you want. Right. Okay. Now, some of these might have a hard edge, some of them might come out with a softer edge, and you want that variety into it. So just putting some darker areas again of the pink. Okay. Okay. Now we are going to, let me just put some here. I don't want my color to be flat, so wherever it looks too flat, just gonna just add a bit of depth into it. Okay. So now let me do a bit more salt, and then we are moving on to our to the rest of our image. Okay. Now let's do a dark blue for our shadows. And if you can imagine the light coming from the left hand corner, so we're going to put a shadow on the right hand side of everything. So I like to use dark blue for this because this is a vintage painting and it can be a nice blue mixture. And again, we are looking for a hard edge as this is a shadow. Okay, so I'm going to start over here and put in my shadow. Try to follow the same shape as what you've got there. So if it comes out, you sort of take it out as well. Okay. Oops. Okay. And then putting in some shadows here into my painting as well, just every here and there. Add a bit of shadows. Okay. Give me a sec. Okay. Also doing shadow on the side of my pots. So each pot on the side. Also doing a shadow on the bottom of each step and on the right hand side of each step. Okay. Doing a shadow here. Doing a shadow on the side of my door frame. So this would be like maybe a cement door frame coming out. Doing a shadow here on the bottom of my door. So here we will have a shadow on the side of each of these. And a shadow going this way. And then shadow on the inner side of the door. There. And yep, okay. Over here we will have a tree coming out. So I'm going to put a shadow for my tree stump and a shadow for my little tree. And then the rest of the blue that I have left, I'm just doing at the bottom. And we are doing dry brush technique. So you want to especially underneath your pots. Okay, there we go. Okay, now let's go mix a very light beige color. I'm going to use a bigger brush for this one. I'll use a nice big flat brush for this one. And we want a nice beige brown, like a light brown color. Actually, not beige, but brown. So just getting a normal brown color, and I just won't mix too much of it. And add lots of water. Okay, I'm going to start here at the bottom. So do you see how light that is? It's really very light. And now we want soft edges. We are painting it very wet over everything. So I'm going to go over my pots over here. So my shadows are going to bleed and blend a little bit into this one. Going to go underneath over these shadows and sort of just underneath to where I've got my green areas. So I'm going over all of this because we want to give it a bit of a vintage look, and it's okay if some of this blends and bleeds. Just go around your board because we want that to be white, and then the rest of the things you can go over. Leaving the door, so painting that soon. We want that to be dry, but I'll do the door frame as well. So don't overthink it, just paint everything with this light brown. Okay, and we can also do just a little bit here at the top, so it doesn't look too isolated over here. Okay, there we go. It's okay if these colors bleed a little bit. Okay. Okay. So now let's start with our door. And the door we're going to do all of it just dry brush. So you can use a smaller brush, round brush for this. And choose any color you'd like. I quite like a turquoisey color for this. Okay, so mix that color in your palette. You can actually have two colors, like a dark blue and a lighter blue, or two different variations of blue. Okay, so let's start. Let's say this door has got lots of planks coming down. So that's what I'm going to paint. So I'm going to put down my paint. So we start right up here. Put down my first layer of planks and let that sort of, let your brush run out. Okay. Now while this is still wet, I'm going to drop in just some brown into it, just to give me a bit of a vintage look for the door. Okay. Now I'm leaving a bit of a space open, and I'll go to the next one. Let's do that over here. Okay. And dry brush a little bit. And a little bit of brown into that. Okay, let's leave another space. Why am I leaving the spaces? So that we can not have everything bleed together. Okay, so leaving space and adding some brown into that. Okay. Now one more over here. Bit of brown. Okay. Now let's go back to the side but with a bit of a different color. So I'm adding more turquoise to my mixture. And I'm going in with the turquoise color. Dry brush. It's okay if there's white lines in there. I'm not going to be too bothered about that. I quite like the look of it. So a bit of brown in there as well. A bit of brown in this one. Right. My door is darker at the bottom because it might be getting some rain sometime. So let's put some color down for each plank. And this I'm sort of putting directly from the palette Then I use my dry brush up. So take that color up with a dry brush. And you can also add a bit of details like that. So going up all the way maybe. Down. Adding some darker areas into your door. Some of this color maybe. And just use that dry brush technique. Putting down some color. Yeah. Okay, that's a good door. I'm happy with that. Okay, let's paint. This should be dry now. If it's not, you can use a hairdryer to dry it up. But let's paint our pots. You can paint them any color you'd like. I might go in for like a maroon or a rust color. So paint the shadow side first. That's where my shadow is. So you want this side to be darker and the bottom. Clean your brush. And then just with a tiny bit of water, we'll blend this color out all the way to this side. And if it has that dry brush technique, that's perfect. That's what you want. Okay. And I'm doing the same on the side. So going in with my color, where my shadow is, the bottom, clean my brush, a little bit of water on the brush, and bring that color out. And put some of this brown on the side also. Okay. Okay, let's do steps. So my steps, I'm just doing a darker brown, but still using that dry brush technique. So where your shadows are, put the color down and then just bleed it out into your step. So I'm just going to do it like that. Okay, and then you can add darker value directly as well. Okay, next one. So I'm going to skip one first just to let that set for a little bit and dry. Do this one first. Clean my brush. Drag that color out using dry brush. And now I'll do the middle one. So that was a bit too much paint, but that's okay. Okay. Just want to see if I can give this a nice crisp edge. Otherwise, I might do it with a pen afterwards. Okay. Okay, let's do our door frame. So also going to do it in a mixture of brown. I might add some rust to it. Okay, so same, put down the color. This side I'm just going to paint normally. Okay. You can do a higher contrast between the door. So just add dark brown between the door and the frame. Okay, top one. Okay, just clean my brush in between and drag some of that color out. Okay, and now let's do this side. So putting the darkest color there right next to my door. And then I'm going to just drag this color out to the edge of the frame. Just using that dry brush technique. Let's fix this a little bit. Okay, let's do the floor. I'm going to do this with a bigger brush, so I'm just going to use a brown color as well. So darker under my pots. And then just use dry brush now again to drag it out. Darker under my steps. And using dry brush. Now you can go and drop in some blue in this again. I quite like the look of it. And especially have some blue under your pots. Okay. Now let's do a tree over here. This is still recording. Yep. Okay. So use a smaller brush and just use a brown for the stems or the branches over here. Let me first test it. This brush looks a bit thick. I might first do this side to get rid of some of that paint. Okay, let's do this. So just okay. Now for the tree over here, I'm first going to use a bit of yellow because my sun is coming from this side, remember? So I'm going to put some yellow on this side. And again, we want a hard edge. And now we'll mix in some green into that. You can use the same green as what you did before. And then you can use some dark blue, your shadow color for this side again. And we'll let those colors blend together. Now let me just get some of this green. Okay. Now we can lift up. We've done lifting before in our last lesson. So just dry your brush and you can lift up some of that paint. You can also blend it a bit better if you want. Okay. Okay, now let's add some final touches. So first of all, you can use a pen, a waterproof pen, to put a number in there. I might do a thicker one, so you can just do a Sharpie even if you have a Sharpie. So I'm just going to put a number in here. Okay. You can just use your pen to do a door handle. So I might do just one over here. Okay. Now let's just do our shadows again. I want to add a bit more of our shadows. So I'm mixing blue again, dark blue. And I just want to do my shadows a bit harder. So again, here I'm just sort of going over my shadows a little bit, like another layer of shadows again underneath here. Because we painted with water over them, some of them has lifted a bit. You just want to sort of amp them. Okay, going from shadows again. So putting my shadows over here, and all of these will have a hard edge. Okay, shadow over here. So your shadows really make your painting pop. It's the one that brings you depth. So getting your shadows right will really help you in your painting to really make your paintings begin to stand out. So that's why it's super important to don't be afraid to add nice dark shadows. Okay, so over here I have a shadow. Underneath the door. Yeah. Now you can add some shadows into your door now as well, as we've just finished painting it. So I like to put a couple of shadows into my door with dry brush. Whoopsies. Use some of that to use some of your shadows to emphasize your door and do some lines in it, do some dry brush techniques in it. You can also add more a bit here at the bottom of your door, and then just follow these lines up. And do dry brush. Okay, where else? Now, something that I also like to do is to do a white gel pen and just go to the opposite side of my shadow, sort of emphasize. So you just put a line on that side, put a line there. You can put a line on your handle, just sort of to emphasize the handle. Put a line on our steps over here on this side and at the bottom, at the top of each step. And we can use some of this to highlight areas in our door. The door goes all the way there. So just do a couple of lines in your door even. Okay, and then we can also add some bricks. So I'm going to use my angled brush for this, but you can also use a flat brush. And let's add some bricks. Now, not everywhere, just a couple. So there's a big space over here, so I might put like just a couple of bricks over here, just like so. Might do a couple over here. Maybe one down there. Maybe one here. Yeah, like so. Maybe one here. Okay. And now we can, for each one of these bricks, we can just add a quick shadow. So on the bottom, on the right, each of them. Okay. And then let me just see, mistake here. So if you make a mistake, you can lift some of it up. I'm not going to be too bothered about it. I'm just going to dry brush it out. And just with some water. Just adding texture to my wall. Okay. And then I'm doing a highlight on each brick. So on the top and on the left. Okay. Now, what does the salt do? You asked me last time. So do you see here these white areas in my bougainvillea? So that's what the salt does. Still a bit wet. So, but if you can see here, these little dots, these little speckles, that's what the salt does. So it naturally just gives it a highlight and a shadow. And it works beautifully for flowers and for snow and just for fun backgrounds. It's still wet, so can't remove all of it. You have to leave it at least a day to properly dry. And that's why I couldn't show you last time what the salt does. But yeah, so there's my picture. We can use a black pen and outline some things if you want to. Just what else? Oh yes, the steps. We can maybe outline a little bit. Well, you can outline everything if you like a line and wash look. Do that. Just doing a quick line over everything. Now, the key when you're outlining is not to do it perfectly. Do it a bit more squiggly. So if you have an unsteady hand, let this, be to your advantage. And sort of just do these squiggles. Okay. I'm not going to outline the bricks. I think that's enough. Okay. So this was our project to practice some of those techniques. And I hope that you've enjoyed it. yeah, so try it again, practice it. Don't be too hard on the techniques, and just have some fun. So I will see you next time.